All right, let's look at a historical view. Very quickly, I'm going to keep the slides going. Don't worry, I trained to standard, not the time. So don't ask me like yesterday. The guys asked me, what time we getting out of here? I said, when I get through. But you see exactly what we're talking about now is limited war. We're talking about proxy fights. One of the things that come up to play right now when I talk to the AG side, and I'll keep learning while I'm out here, is the fact that we do joint operations as well as allied operations, and you have to look at manning. My British counterpart that I have with me back at Fort Leavenworth, his actual rank within the British Army is a sergeant major. For protocol purposes, when he comes to the States, he's a warrant officer. That's correct. So you're trying to get grade match as well as MOS match. The more that we start conducting operations with allied forces, NATO in particular, and some of the others, guess what? We got to get the right match when they start to do what? Fill those slots. It becomes a problem when you ask for an Army person and you say, but the only one I have available is an Air Force, requires a negotiation. You have to have the right skill set. So we're dealing with a lot of our partners around the world. And it's just not as easy as I turn around and say, just get me a bot and just put Walt Williams in there, he's good to go, and sir, can't do that. Not the right match. Better yet, for our financial management folks, it goes with the same thing of money. You guys love color money. Title 10 to Title 32 to every dadgum title you can ever think of. How many titles do you think we have for money, the color of money? Not so much as military, but if you look at the U.S. Code, you got a whole bunch of money. And you can't touch it. There are certain rules and stipulations. Pace of change, giving you an idea of how things have changed. I told you about this flip phone versus cell phone, smartphone. But look at HGTV. Right now, we have to be able to tell folks in my office that they cannot get a smart TV because guess what's on the market being sold a lot? Smart TV. Smart TV has wireless connection. Cannot be used in a secure environment. So we have to learn what can and what cannot be used. If you look also on there, I can't tell you how much an F-35 is right now. That thing keeps changing day by day and it's produced in 30 and 48 different states. But as some of the folks came back, my boss told me, he says, you know, we can take an F-35. If we cancel a program, we can get well on a lot of things right away overnight. How much do you think the CPOF costs? All the updates to it. Its interaction with all the other command and control boxes, or should we say mission command boxes. Costs a lot of money. Kind of give you a summary when you look across at Mr. Clapper and some of the others that are there as they talk about the way the world shapes up. And you're still trying to guess. You say, wait a minute, what is this still doing for me as a professional here at Fort Jackson at SSI? I'm AG, I'm not the trigger puller, I'm not dealing with, no, it's shaping how the world is going to impact how we do business. How we would teach, how we would train, how we would educate. What we have to draw from. The chief makes a lot of great one-liners, as we call it sometimes. You'll see exactly what he talks about, how the Army stays ready. And General Milley is one that is what I would characterize based on my outward dealings with him and the results of what he's doing. Is when he says, I want it to happen, I want it to happen. Tell me the truth. The military, the reason I asked you how many countries we're deployed to is because many folks says, hey, I'm only just training real world, just train me on the real world conditions. I can't train you on 140 different conditions. I can't. I can get you into a composite set that kind of flatten it out. So, here are 21st century challenges. These are things you can put on your board, especially when you're dealing in your leadership courses is to get folks to understand what's going to happen. You see the one thing that is ambiguous. Gray areas. Some of the students yesterday came back, and I had one that said, sir, with the gray areas, do you think we'll see a lot of 15-6s? I said, you bet your sweet bit. We see them in the combat training centers, because how many of you have been to NTC or JMRC or one of the combat training centers here? Okay? Some of you don't go, that's okay. But what happens now is they make sure they issue what we call an exercise 15-6. It's exercise only to go through the process because incidents can happen. I was on recently at a combat training center where an incident came up and the exercise director says, yeah, we'll do it. It does warrant almost a real world 15-6. We want to do an exercise. This is how I want to handle it with leadership. You can go into situations where someone was told based on the rules of engagement or the rules of interaction. And I give you one real world was where one was in Iraq and they said, what, you have to make sure that the weapon leaves the civilian's hands. And when it does, they're no longer a combatant. What it came down to real world was an individual shot one, killed him, 15-6 was initiated. But the reason being is because it was the time. The Iraqi national just took a little bit too much time. Some will play games. They shoot, drop the weapon so they, hey, take me to jail. You shoot them, you do what? You go to jail yourself. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the gray areas for me that I haven't read that show, just came out October last year. Domestic concerns.
Yes,
We've
ma'am.
been talking about foreign, but when you see things like the incident in Charlottesville, where oftentimes they'll call out the National Guard, there are no rules of engagement for those scenarios, and that's the area that I'm uncomfortable in. Because it's something that we face every day.
Yes, there is an actual rule of engagement that you have for domestic, but what she brings up is really true. Because you heard me talk about Title 10 versus Title 32, that is a whole separate discussion, but I will tell you right quick. There are things that has to be done what? You cannot bring the federal troops in. It has to be the National Guard. Posse Comitatus. I will tell you, start reading that and get in the back of your head. You're going to find out you can't do some things that you think you can do overnight.
But we're not really talking about that.
Yeah. But what is happening is that when you bring folks in, even humanitarian relief, it takes that same thing. I'll break it down even further. When 9/11 happened, they were going in and getting the bodies, and they were ready to move them to certain spots. What is the District of Columbia? What state's border that?
Maryland, Virginia.
Do you not think that there are separate rules of how you make sure you handle the remains in between Virginia and Maryland? When did they die? Same thing with personal effects and everything else, notification. Have to know that. Even as far as you look at a place called Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where does most of it sit?
Tennessee.
Tell you real world, I got married at Fort Campbell. The first thing that happened when we had to go get the blood test, me and my wife, they said, which chapel are you getting married in? We said Central Chapel. In that particular day, it's now Soldiers Chapel. We said Central Chapel. They said, you have to go to Clarksville to get your marriage license. What? She says, now you're not going to have the ceremony in the parking lot, are you? I'm like, no. Because the parking lot sits in Kentucky. The chapel sits in Tennessee. What does that do for you? Think of this. When it hits borders like that, what does it do to you as an AG when you're doing some of your paperwork?
Complicated.
Yeah. And what if folks don't tell you?
Mess some stuff up.
Okay? Let's bring something else home. Just had a domestic incident that happened in the state of Texas What is the Air Force sweating bullets over right now that all other services are jumping through their rear end to make sure they do correctly?
Oh, that shooting, that guy in release.
Yes, domestic violence. That's what I'm telling you. Wake up, folks. It's getting ready. It's happening around us. OE is not just a combat action. That's what I want you to understand from this. It involves the entire world, what we do daily. Now, a lot of this you're already doing in your classroom. This is going to formalize and crystallize it for you so you come out with a what? Better understanding. And right now you find that everybody and their brother is basically going, did you get that paperwork right? Did that thing get taken care of? You need to talk to James. You need to make sure you talk to LP. You need to make sure you talk across the board. Because when the incident happens, it's too late. When we looked at that particular time, don't worry, I'll make sure y'all get y'all break, okay?
You must read my mind.
All right. What happens is this is how we looked at the landscape after 2028, and this is the way we'll look after 2040. What do we think the trends, conditions that are happening today, what do we think they are happening down the pipe? We go through a lot of vetting with academia, to the folks that are what we call futurists, to everybody else, making sure we vet what we really think to come up with. The first white paper was done in 2000, Capturing the Operational Environment. That's when it was Contemporary Operational Environment, the COE, some of you might have seen way back in the day. And now OE, because we said it needs to be, just keep it simple. It's caused too many problems. But you see where things were that we thought at that time. That's what it looked like in 2012. Some of these same actions you look like in 2012 was happening 2 years, 3 years later. Some are still unfolding or still developing right now. That's why when I started bringing up about the over 120 countries that were deployed to, terrorists, narco-terrorists, criminal terrorists, that are happening where? In Mexico. Things that happen to the north of us. In fact, we're now going back and everybody is really concerned about the Arctic because that's where rich oil fields are. The Russians are really concerned about that, and so I said in a class and working group about almost 2 years ago, that was one of the concerns. They said, whatever we do, don't forget looking at the Arctic. Now I'm going to bring this up to you. Everybody know what an icebreaker is and what it's used for? How many icebreakers does the U.S. have? One. The rest of the world have 5, 10, 30, and 40. So they can break the ice to keep commercial shipping open. Which means we have to do what? Rely on our allied partners to allow the Arctic open. So you can see exactly where things are going to happen around the world, where we're going to send you. I would love for somebody to send me, as I learned when they were talking about folks getting their RFOs now, and one of them said, yes, sir, I had my RFO this morning. What? I remember the day I had to wait 4 or 5 days to get my RFO. And that's if it came through snail mail. Now you get it almost instantaneous. And I turn around and I go in and say, I'm sorry, I'm your assignment officer, but Walt, I'm sorry, we're not going to send you that. We're going to send you over here. You what? Can I put in my resignation? No, it can't go. Because it's almost instantaneous now, the way we deal with it. So you can see exactly what we'll be dealing with all the way around. And so you'll see down in the other boxes, here's some things to think about. I usually flash one of these maps up, and I've seen some instructor facilitators put something up like this in the classroom to refocus everybody. This was originally classified. We worked with them and worked with our intelligence counterparts and got it declassified to unclassified. So it is able to be used. It's not unclassified FOU. As you see, from 2012, it really didn't change anything on it because it's still happening. The landscape, so when we look at it, what is happening around the world, what do we think we're going to see? This is pretty much a summation to give you what we're looking for now. Global trends. Clean water You have nations that go to war over it. Actually, it's a law on the books in the U.S. called riparian rights. Folks along the Great Lakes, you have one state that was going to sue another one because they dropped the water level 6 inches. Now, you may think 6 inches isn't a lot, but it affects the water as it gets downstream to depth. Clean water. How much water is out there? In fact, when you get a drought in a part of us that's out with the Missouri River, we can fly over and look over, we start seeing sandbars that come up. Because we have to watch when the snow is released. After it starts melting, they release the water from upstream to come downstream for navigation. So just from that idea, what we could face in the U.S. Yes, sir.
Is that Georgia and North Carolina, or is it Georgia and Tennessee? One of those are fighting over water.
I believe it's Georgia and North. No. It's Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
Tennessee and North Carolina.
Over the waterway. You wouldn't think it happens, but it does. In fact, if you look at it, South Carolina and North Carolina are still fighting over the state line. Just up the road here, if you go up towards Lumberton, North Carolina, and south of the border, there's an argument as to whether or not south of the border sits in South Carolina or does it sit in North Carolina. Does Charlotte sit in North Carolina or South Carolina?
We'll take it.
And the reason being was it goes back to the early days with the colonial period when they were doing the survey that they've gone back and figured out that either the guy was drunk or something was wrong, his instruments weren't working, and they laid it out wrong. Now just think of that commercial impact if you lose one part of something to another state. If Charlotte moves over into South Carolina, hallelujah. Okay, yes ma'am.
Or just Carowinds. Part of Carowinds looks like it should be
In South Carolina.
And you don't cross the North Carolina border until you're on the other side of Carowinds.
Right. So what I'm showing you is providing you general context on OE. Check?
Check.
All right. So this is the conclusion. World ain't gonna get any better. It's just gonna move faster. But we have to be what? More wiser in how we expend our energy. 1% of the force, 1% of the population. Back in my day, we had over 1.3 million folks that was in the Army connected. At one point, 2 years ago, they were talking about whether we go to 375,000 to do the range of missions that we're doing now. I commend each and every one of them because you're weatherwoman. But it's going to pick up.